Hey guys, hope y'all have been having a great day today. My name is Joshua Koerner, and I have been really interested in all of the mirrorless developments that we've been seeing kind of unfold around us lately. Now, I've been talking a big talk on a couple of these privately, with myself, and I've been like, I'm gonna pre-order all the Nikon things, I'm gonna pre-order all the Canon things. The X-T3, that's what I'm gonna go for. But I think what I'm really excited about the most is the a6700, the a7000, whatever we're gonna see from Sony in terms of APS-C next. Now, I have a mixed relationship with APS-C. So I started out on the Rebel XS. That was kind of the way that I got into photography, and it was a great tool for a really long time, but I also felt like that wasn't really adequate. And at the time, APS-C sensors weren't at the level that they are now. So when I was able to move to full frame, that was a really big jump. Now, I moved from my 60 down, if you will, to the Alpha 6300, and in a lot of ways, I don't think that was a move down. I think that was a lateral or even an upgrade. Now, the lens choices that I had, the lenses that I used on a regular basis for my Alpha 6300, stellar. There were some I still use it regularly, significant issues with that camera. Rolling shutter, lack of IBIS. I know the 6500 fixes that, but it's still not fantastic. There are a number of things that really mitigate the long-term use and usability of that camera. The big thing right now is the color science. And not just the color science, but also the color depth, right? Like, you can't get the same dynamic range out of just straight up 4K or anything on the Alpha 6300 or Alpha 6500 as you can on my A7 III. I can't trust the 1080p quality on my 6300 to be on par with what I believe 1080 should be, which I can get out of my A7 III. So there are a few issues along those lines. I think in terms of stills, the issues are buffer depth. Now the 6500 solves for some of those, but I don't think that it's a great solution. And I think that, the whole, when do you drop to 12-bit RAW versus stay at 14 is another conversation. So I think that there's a lot of things that could be very easily improved on by Sony in an Alpha 6700, Alpha 7000. These are going to be my thoughts on that matter. So y'all don't forget to motor drive all over that like button. Check out the affiliate links for the gear that I use to make this video. And I'm really interested in your perspective on what the Alpha 6700, 7000 will be, what you want it to be, what you need it to be, and include in there like a price point, because that's going to be a big lever that Sony can manipulate to engage consumers, yourself and myself, that are dedicated to very high quality tools. So I'm very much interested in your perspective through the gamut. Love to hear from you. I think the first thing has got to be battery life. Battery life is so key to the, in and out day-to-day operation of a camera. It needs the Z-type battery. I think it's going to get it. I think it's going to get the better grip with the better control functionality because it needs it. I think a lot of that is kind of going to wrap up into a little bit more of a painful price point, right around $1,500, $1,750 USD. Now I think that because we're going to go that direction with a really high-end APS-C camera, I think we can expect much better stabilization. I think we can expect much better dynamic range out of that sensor. And by that, I'm saying, 14, 15 stops when we consider the A7 III to be 14, 15 stops of dynamic range. Not to say that that is what it is, but that's what's claimed. So I think it will be a similar claim on the part of Sony. I think we're gonna see much better detail in 1080. I think we're gonna see much better 4K. I think overheating is not gonna be an issue. I think the touchpad, the rear LCD is gonna be a much higher quality. I think the EVF has got to be much higher quality. I think our buffer depth is gonna be really good. I'd love to see 4K 60, but I don't know about that one. 4K 60 is not the end all be all. What is gonna be better color depth in video. So I think that what we're going to see out of that is 10-bit 422 output over HDMI, and internal 8-bit 420. I would love it if Sony would do 8-bit 422 internal, and I would love it if we could see from Sony something like 200 megabits a second on that as well. Going along with that, I think we have to see dual card slots, UHS 2 for at least one of them. I know that's probably a really big ask, but what I mean by that is I think that might be pushing reality a touch, but I think that that's what needs to happen. Like, Sony needs to be able to drop an APS-C camera into this space that competes with the OMD EM1, that competes with the GH5, that competes with the XT2, XT3, XH1, and it needs to do so at a competitive price point, and we need to start seeing some more dedicated professional grade lenses out of Sony for APS-C. I mean, it's just what we have to start seeing for Sony to be truly competitive across the entire market. We might be seeing Sony do great in terms of full frame, but we're not in terms of APS-C. Now, there are a lot of things that go into that, right? That could be, you know, maybe Sony should work a little bit harder on its relationships with its retailers, because not very good at those notoriously. Maybe Sony should work harder on being willing to take a little bit less margin when it works with retailers, so that they can, you know, those retailers can be a little bit more motivated to push those out the door. There's a lot of different conversations around that we could have, but I think that when we're thinking about the 6700, 7000 from Sony, this has got to not be just, you know, a small generational bump, right? This has got to be a big statement of intent. We got to see 6 or 7 stops of Sony IBIS, which is, you know, closer to 5 real stops, because Sony IBIS is not real stops of stabilization. I think we got to see being able the lens OSS and the IBIS to be able to talk to each other much better, like a GH5 can. I think there's a whole lot of things we got to see, because where this is positioned in the marketplace has got to be flagship. You know, it's got to take down everybody else as insofar as it can. 4K 60 would be great for that, but I don't think, again, that it's necessary. And you know, the reason for that is because Sony is doing so well with full frame, right? We can't see Sony be one-dimensional, or else what's the point? The 6000 series cameras are good, but there's a lot that they're leaving on the table with those that they can't afford to keep leaving on the table. We have to see the 7000, 6700 be a competitor to the A7 III, the A7 II, the Z6, the 6D Mark II, the D750. It has to be a serious competitor with entry-level full-frame models on price and on features and specifications. So, you know, internal 10-bit, it would be a point that I think that Sony could really use to kind of pivot the positioning of the product against the rest of the market. I think that better in-body image stabilization would bring a lot of people from 4/3 back to APS-C because of sensor size and ease of bokeh and light gathering ability and high ISO performance. I think something like a stacked sensor or a much better BSI sensor could be a huge step in the right direction as well, where you can pull a lot more dynamic range out of that image, or, you know, irrespectively shoot, you know, so many more stills in a burst at a much smaller price point, right? Like a mini A9, 20-24 FPS. If it could do that, that would be killer. And that would be a great way to build market share in a very, very highly competitive segment. All of the segments are getting the competitiveness is only increasing, right? Or I guess for you it'd be increasing. And that's awesome, but we're not seeing Sony take it seriously. We're not seeing Sony take the APS-C segment super seriously. And the 18-135 was a great lens to be released earlier on this year, like the 1st or 2nd of January. It was a really kind of like under the radar, kind of slip it in there. We have to see f2.8 zooms. We have to see f1.4s. We have to see serious dedication to optics in that segment, or else why would anybody buy Sony APS-C? And so then why would anybody buy Sony full frame? So I'm really hoping that a lot of those pieces come together: bigger battery, better EVF, great dynamic range, great video functionality, great stills functionality in terms of frame rate, stuff like that. General functionality like IBIS, like the control surfaces, like a front dial, back dial, exposure, comp, and then another dial there would be awesome. I think we don't have to see an AF joystick, but we have to see good touch functionality. I think it would be really key if they could implement something along the lines of a flip out screen. That would be 100% killer. We have to see basically excellence across the board, and I think that we will, because Sony consistently is able to bring products to the table that are both surprising in their capability and incredibly capable, right? Like, it's not surprising in a 6D Mark II sense where it's like, I can't believe they brought that camera to market. It's surprising because it does such a fantastic job at so many things. That's what we're gonna get out of the Sony a6700, a7000. My name is Joshua Koerner. I really appreciate your time and your attention in this video, and I hope that you've had a great day today, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, check out the Amazon affiliate links, you know the drill. Thank you.